Hello and welcome once again to The Blueprints. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, with new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. On today's show, trade talks dominate the agenda. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, outlines his strategy. And, of course, affordability gets worse here in Canada. To talk about this and so much more, we bring on Jacob Mantle, the Member of Parliament for York-Durham, also member of the Trade Committee and my geographical neighbor. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. Pleasure to be here.
I apologize. You're right next door to me geographically and your first time here.
Yes. Well, I was waiting for the invitation, but it never came. So, finally glad to be here.
Finally got you locked in. So that's fantastic. On a subject you are very familiar with, not just in politics, but outside your life in politics, the trade portfolio.
Yes. So it's something close to my heart. I practiced international trade and investment law for about 8 years in the private sector. Most recently, before the election, I was a lawyer at Osler in Toronto. So I've been following the trade dynamics since Trump 1.0. Right. And as I like to say, he's pretty bad for everyone, but he's really good for trade lawyers. So we've always been very busy while he's been president. So, but now I'm here in Parliament, working alongside you and our colleagues in caucus, and I get to apply the things and the things I've learned and the skills that I have to, helping Canada navigate this difficult time.
All right. So it is a difficult topic. It's a complex topic.
Sure
the Prime
is.
Minister has been out and about trying to get deals. We've seen conversations with China, despite... Now, no one's saying we shouldn't have trade with China. I think it's good to be aware that China, during the campaign, was our biggest national security threat.
According to the Prime Minister.
According to his words.
Yeah.
And they're talking about deal after deal, which, okay, you still got to keep in mind. Then also... The Prime Minister just a week ago, I guess, was out in India talking trade again. And there was not too long ago that Prime Minister Trudeau stood up in Parliament and said that India was doing all these horrific things within Canada's borders. And we seem to be changing alignment with countries that don't necessarily have the best relationship with us just a few seconds ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to take a step back on the trade side, I mean, Mark Carney can fly around all he wants, but this is really nothing new. Canada has always traded with these countries. Yep. You can't ignore China or India as a trading nation like Canada is, and we've been trading with them, for decades. But what is different is that there's been a political element added into this negotiation. I mean, it's one thing to trade with China. It's another thing to speak positively about their New World Order while in China. And it's a political decision to make a show of realigning ourselves with a geopolitical adversary, in my opinion. And I think that's where I would take issue with the Prime Minister's approach. I think on trade, we're aligned. I mean, we're a trading nation as Canada. We always have been. I mean, the majority of our trade negotiations and deals were conducted by previous Conservative governments, whether it was the initial NAFTA with the United States or the many trade deals, most significantly with the European Union under Prime Minister Harper. So that's always been in our blood as free traders, as Conservatives. So that's nothing new, but the difference in my mind is this political aspect that the Prime Minister has consciously decided to reorient our politics toward, one, a geopolitical adversary in China, and two, a country that has demonstrably been involved in foreign interference in Canada. And it seems like those issues have simply been swept under the rug by the Prime Minister, and I think that's concerning for me and Canadians.
I think so too. Let's go up cut one here. We have the Prime Minister taking a question from a reporter, I believe from the CBC, outlining, just some of the concerns that have happened between India and Canada. And his response, like usual, is who cares, right? Play cut two.
You have outlined what steps Canada is doing to protect citizens from foreign interference and in transnational repression, but a lot of confusion exists, including within your own cabinet, about what Canada thinks India is doing. So I'm hoping that you can clarify in a yes or no way. Do you agree with your own government official, yes or no, who suggested India is no longer actively interfering in Canada's democratic process and that Indian agents are no longer involved in murders and extortions within Canada? Yes or no?
Well, I'm not sure that's an exact quote.
That is what he suggested.
That's not a quote.
I can read the quote.
I think, we can debate whether you had a discussion that was not for quotation, but if you want to read a quote from something that's not for quotation.
We cut the clip because it just went on and on in some word salad. But at the same time, the question was legitimate.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a serious question, and you can see the Prime Minister is completely uncomfortable in trying to answer that. And I would be too, because there's a disconnect here between what actions he's taking and what India has been up to in Canada. I mean, I think the Public Inquiry on Foreign Interference would disagree with the Prime Minister. I think the RCMP would disagree with the Prime Minister. I mean, I was reading through some of that in preparation for our discussion, and I'll just read for you two quotes I think that are relevant here. So from the Public Inquiry on Foreign Interference, they identified India as, quote, the second most active country engaged in electoral interference in Canada. And that's behind only China, who was the first. So that's a fact that no one disputes. The Prime Minister hasn't disputed that fact in his new overtures to India. And then the second quote is from the RCMP in 2024, when they stated that criminal activity was, quote, being orchestrated by agents of the government of India. And that included extortion and homicide. So, I mean, those are some of the most serious crimes that foreign agents can be involved in, and there's been no clarification from the Prime Minister on where those issues are. Are they still going on? Have they been raised with Indian officials at the highest level? We don't know because he hasn't said.
And while all this is going on, it's important to understand, at least as been outlined by you just now, when Stephen Harper came into power back in the mid 2000s, 2006. There were only about a dozen trade deals that were existing. And by the time Stephen Harper left, there were well over 40, closer to 50 that were either in the works or completed. That shows that, yes, we have to diversify trade, but at the same time, we have 75% of our trade going to the United States. So you can't discount the United States or write them off entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the first point about we have open trade relations with the majority of the world's economies. I mean, the exception being China and India that we've talked about. But otherwise, sort of in the pluralistic democracies around the world, we have open access. So there's a diminishing return on some of the activities that the Prime Minister is undertaking. I mean, we already have access to the Japanese market. We already have access to the U.S. market. We already have access to the U.K. market. We have access to the European market. Some of the biggest, most developed economies we have access to. Could we improve that, deepen it, seek regulatory alignment? Of course, all those things. But as the Prime Minister has gone around the world, signing deals with countries like Indonesia, which great. I'm on the trade committee. We reviewed that deal. We're largely in agreement with it. But it's a rounding error. It's a rounding error.
It was less than 1%.
It was less than 1/2%
Okay,
improvement to Canada's GDP. So it doesn't matter how many trade deals you sign with Indonesia. It will never replace the relationship and the importance of the relationship they have in the United States. And that, to me, is a problem because we see a lot of effort being spent around the world, not so much effort being spent to settle our disputes and get resolution with the United States.
All right, let's cue up cut 2. This is a video you put out, and if you're not following Jacob on his social media, I highly recommend you do so. Play cut 2.
So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win. We have the best deal with the Americans, and the third thing that's true is we will get an even better deal because
It's also baffling to me that the Prime Minister would jet to Davos and give a speech that pokes the President squarely and firmly in the eye. That was a choice, and I think the Prime Minister knew exactly what he was doing. So we have to ask ourselves, does his rhetoric match our reality?
Despite the fact the Prime Minister in the campaign promised a deal with the Americans by summertime, and that the deadline kept going. But you're right, it's like he pokes the president, which he makes himself a big enough target, sure. He pokes the president for, I think, and you said it earlier, and I agree with that, for political gain here at home.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are all proud Canadians, first and foremost. And any threats of annexation are, unacceptable, never going to happen, period, end of story. But I am concerned that the Liberals are using this issue for domestic political gain in Canada. And I start from the proposition that, when the Prime Minister or somebody who wants to be the Prime Minister makes a promise during the election, we should expect that they're going to keep it. And The Prime Minister won this last election in no small part because of his promises with respect to the United States. And we saw some of them there. He said he was going to handle Donald Trump. He said he was going to get a deal. And he said in the House of Commons, not only are we going to get a deal, we're going to get a better deal. Those are his words, not mine, not the media's. Those are the bars that he has set for himself. So I think it's reasonable for us as the opposition and for Canadians to hold him to that promise. And my point in making that video is to say, well, we're approaching 1 year. I think March 14th is the date. This week will be 1 year of him being Prime Minister. And if you assess where we are in our issues with the United States, we're no further ahead than where we were.
That's right.
And in some respects, we're actually worse.
There's quite a few industries hurting.
Yeah,
even worse now.
Very much hurting. And, and he set the bar, for a win and an even better deal. And so in my mind, that means no tariffs.
Yeah.
That means continued free access, and anything less than that, I think, is a failure. When measured against his own promises.
So let's cue up cut 3. We have our leader, Pierre Poilievre, speaking in Toronto, outlining the Conservative vision here. Play cut 3.
Deeper than any temporary dispute, Canada's prosperity and security are inseparable from a stable relationship with the United States. And that is why we should not declare a permanent rupture with our biggest customer and closest neighbor in favor of a strategic partnership for a new world order with Beijing, a regime the Prime Minister himself said was the biggest threat to Canada just a year ago.
And businesses can't just retool, right? As much as the Prime Minister says they can, to figure out new shipping routes, to a new customer base, to meeting the bureaucratic hurdles that exist in Europe compared to the United States and Canada. This can't be done overnight, right? Yeah. You have to kind of dance with who's brought you. And yes, there are some unfortunate and very traumatic pieces to that relationship, but we need to figure a way around this. We need to get a deal, and the Prime Minister promised one and hasn't delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of attending Pierre's speech at the Economic Club last week, which you just showed the clip of. And we have now squarely set out how we are differentiating ourselves from the Liberals on this issue. On the one hand, you've got the Prime Minister says there's a global rupture, with the world, including the United States, and we have to think about new world orders. Versus, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives saying, no, we understand the world has changed, but we shouldn't jettison history and generations of friendship and success with the United States. And I think that's very, very important. I mean, it's just common sense. We share a border, we share a language, we share a culture, we share a history, we share a legal system, all of these things with the United States. So common sense would tell you, that's going to gravitate trade in that direction. And that's not just common sense. There's actually a trade economic theory called the gravity model of trade that says these types of things will dictate how nations trade with each other. And that's true with Canada.
Yeah.
And so it will always be easier for a Canadian to do business with somebody in Michigan than it will be to do business with somebody in Germany. Not to say that we don't want to do business with people in Germany, we do. But just it will be easier, especially for small and medium-sized businesses. So I think that's the theory, and Pierre's bang on with the economic theory. He's bang on with our history, and I've put it in terms of economics and theory, but a U.S. president put it more eloquently than myself. I think it was President Kennedy who said, and I brought that quote, "Geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Those from whom nature hath so joined together, let no man put asunder." And I think that sort of encapsulates, our relationship with the United States. The Liberals seem to want to, in President Kennedy's words, put it asunder. And I think Conservatives want to ensure that we remain successful in our relationships with the United States.
While making Canada as strong as possible.
Of course.
Wouldn't it be great to have additional pipelines already functioning, already operational?
Of course.
With going on in the Middle East right now. Had the Liberals not shut down Energy East, the Northern Gateway, Keystone XL, they really didn't fight that hard when Biden ripped it up. But all these pieces to this puzzle would have been stronger if this was operational, if the Liberals let the market do what it does best.
Absolutely. I mean, we can talk about Trump's tariffs on Canadian industry, but the thing that's hamstringing us the most is our own inability to get things built or get things to market. I mean, we have what the world wants. I mean, even the Liberals say that.
Yeah.
But they've done nothing about it, right? Not one project has been approved since they've come into office. Not one pipeline has a shovel in the ground. Not one port has more infrastructure being built on it. So lots of rhetoric coming from them on this trade file, not a lot of results.
Even industry has pulled out again, and we lost another one last week, saying there's no certainty within the current climate here in Canada, so they're going to pull out. Another blow to our economy, just one after the other. Despite all the pieces of legislation the Liberals said they needed to get things done, not happening. But the Prime Minister also promised that we could judge his performance by the grocery prices.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there seems to be another disconnect going on. I mean, the Prime Minister is going around the world, and there's a lot of show and tell going on. But we have to remember there's a reality for Canadians here at home. And so, he can go to China and put pen to paper on a deal that may have no effect in the future. But people still have to buy their groceries this week, and they still have to heat their homes in the winter, and they still have to put their kids in hockey. And all those things are more expensive every single day, every single week. And I know there was new data out this week showing that as well.
Yeah, we're going to show that. Cue up cut 4.
With rising grocery prices, some Canadians are consciously making hard choices to save money.
If it's not on sale, we're not buying it.
Like Fresco and like Walmart are like the places to go, I find. And like if you go to Farm Boy or like anywhere else, it's just like insane.
A new survey from debt relief firm Spergel finds in the past 6 months, just over 60% of respondents say they skip meals or reduce their portions. More than half say they use credit cards, loans, or lines of credit to pay for groceries. And about 40% say they delayed paying a bill to buy groceries. The survey also finds many are purchasing less meats or proteins and cutting back on fruits and vegetables.
Like in normal times, a story like this would be catastrophic. The public would be losing their minds. And these numbers just keep getting worse. So it actually proves our point about the strategy Canada should be taking.
Absolutely. I mean, the costs have, it's not just you and I saying it. I mean, you can look at any report from the last year, costs for essentials have just continued to rise. And unfortunately, that issue is getting short.